Good afternoon, everyone, and a big welcome to everybody who's joining us here on the Sales Step Up. So a giant welcome if you've come along, and if this is your first time here, then a special hello. If you've been here before, then you already know what you're in for. You're in for some exciting chat about sales, and in this case, about software, which is going to be especially exciting because we are talking with David Middleton about Freemium, amongst other things. We're also going to talk premium. We're going to talk trials. We're going to talk bespoke software. You have no idea the things that we're going to cover. It's going to be so much fun. So a big welcome if you're joining us. Do say hello in the comments. It'd be lovely to say hello. I know we've got Mark there. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the stream today. I know I can see we've got a few viewers coming on. So if you are watching, come and say hello. And equally, if you're on the replay, thank you for making the time for coming back and seeing us here today. What we will be doing as well is giving you the opportunity to connect. So you will find David's LinkedIn details are all in the post. So make sure you go and connect with him. And also remember to switch your connect with me so that you get reminded next time we go live on the Sales Step Up as well. Hi there, Tamika. Okay, brilliant. We've got a few people coming in now. How lovely to see you. So my guest today is David Middleton. Now, we actually met because it turns out we shared the same office space, but I didn't know that at the time when we started chatting on LinkedIn, as is so often the way. I just hadn't made the connection. So what was great is I'd been posting about freemium software, and this was in the midst of some of what was going on with LastPass. And we ended up deep in conversation. So I was like, David, this is more than a LinkedIn post. I would love to have you on the Sales Step Up to get your thoughts about how it's actually impacting on how people are selling and growing their software as a service, their SaaS business, their software business, and actually if it's the right approach for them. So I'm so excited now. Let's say a big hello. And remember, if you've got questions for David, then now is your chance to ask them. Just stick them in the comments. So, hi, David.
Hello.
So a big giant welcome to the Sales Step Up. I know that this is like one of those things that I just messaged you out of the blue and went, do you want to come on LinkedIn Live? Were you excited?
Yes. Yeah, I was. I didn't think replying to that one post would end up here, but, you know, it's great to be here. It's always nice to have an opinion, share it with other people.
I think as well, I think it was really interesting when we were talking before this, you know, self-confessed tech addict. I was like, absolutely. Okay, tech addict, that's got to be like sort of one of those big things. So what makes you say that you're a tech addict? What is it that really hooked you about tech and has kept you there to this day?
Everything. So it started years ago. In fact, while I was in school, we did this weird programming on a BBC computer, for anybody that remembers them, before sort of PCs became mainstream. And we had to create a database of all things. And it was from that moment I just knew that was something I wanted to do. And with tech, you can literally do anything at all. It's such a big part of our lives now. It covers our social lives, our professional lives, healthcare. I mean, it's everywhere. It's crept into everything. And it's just that the possibilities are endless. And that's what sort of really gets us. Anything you can think of, you can do with tech.
And that's really interesting as well, because one of the things that is really interesting about you guys is you talk a lot about bespoke business software. And I think that is fascinating because I think it's a very different approach to selling almost like an off-the-shelf product, if that makes sense. I know you do sell products as well, but can you tell us a little bit about that? Tell us a bit about the bespoke side of things.
Yeah, so the whole thing with software is because back in the olden days, not many people could have bespoke software, so you had to go off the shelf. But because of the changes in technology and the languages and how many developers there are these days, businesses can now have software that's truly bespoke to what they do. And from my point of view, we came into an industry. Well, we worked in an industry already where it was so different to most business models that off-the-shelf software just didn't fit. So being able to customize a piece of software to do 100% of what the business needs was just really exciting. So And everybody can have that now. You can go to a lot of software developers and they'll build something truly bespoke that allows you to do what you do better than just buying something off the shelf.
I think the thing around that from a developer's point of view, I guess that's really exciting around that as well. There's a degree of like, oh, what can I do next? Do you always find that hard to rein in?
Yes. So a lot of the times with our software, we'll put things in that the customers haven't asked for, just because, like you say, you can't do that. And it's a bit of a power thing at times. You think, oh, it'd be really good to do this and do this. And actually, a lot of the time, we get it right. And the customer goes, I never even thought of that. That's really good. So, it definitely is exciting to see what you build live in front of you. You turn it on, you use it. It's something that you built. It's a fantastic feeling.
And obviously you're like for those people who don't know, you're in the amusement industry. I mean, It's all about entertaining people. So what sort of stuff are your programs doing out there in the wild at the moment?
Okay, so we supply business software mainly for amusement and gaming machine operators. So everything from your pub machines to your arcades to your casinos, they're all the suppliers for those places are our customers. So like I said, most of our software is business management software and data analysis tools. So it's quite a niche market, actually. Not a lot of people sort of think about it and go, oh, yeah, I know all about that. In fact, to most people, they go, so what do you do? And you have to kind of explain, and they go, oh, that is very niche. Yeah, it's a really niche market.
But it means what they always say, isn't it? You should niche down and then you can be specialist. Does it mean like when all their accounts balance and stuff, they get like ding, 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 or something like that going on?
Not quite. I think, the industry itself was quite cheesy at times, but we've tried to stop that kind of thing in software at least.
Oh, you see, I was quite enjoying the cheesy aspect. I was a bit like, business operation software, like, themed around Hookah Duck or something. But then that's just me, you see. I always like to think about the fun stuff. So how did you get involved in that specific industry? Did you start wider and then niche down? Or have you always been in that space?
Actually, I've worked in the amusement industry my entire career, really. So I actually started off as an engineer in the trade, fixing machines and things like that. And I sort of progressed through management and into IT, but in the background, I'd always still been, developing software and starting off like most developers, building websites, that kind of thing. So from there, it was sort of a natural progression because I got to the point when I thought there's something missing here. The current software is so out of date, and there's only a few companies provide it, and they were just resting on their laurels. A lot of people were using 20, 30-year-old software that wasn't kept up to date, so there was a big gap in the market. And I just took it. I decided to take the risk and go my own way.
And how long have you been doing that for then?
11 years now. So I sort of went, to start my own company 11 years ago, providing software.
So that's quite often with software companies, like there's definitely sort of like different phases. There's getting to you've got the idea, like this is like what would be a great idea, I'd be excited to do it. Then there's obviously developing the product. Then you've actually got to get it out there to your target audience, and then you've got to start to scale that, and maybe put some variety in your offerings in and things like that. So how long did that process actually take? Because sometimes there can be quite a long runway there, can't there?
It can, but I was quite fortunate that I actually found a big company that was on the hunt for that software from day one. So I had the sort of the head start, and we had some good discussions around it to start with. And although they were just instantly like, we'd have this if it was there. So it was a really good way to sort of say, well, there's definitely a market, and this is just one business. So we started from there. We built it all out, and it just expanded from there.
That's amazing. So in effect, there was some pre-sale there. Oh, I love a bit of pre-sale.
That definitely was. Although I didn't think of it that way at the time. But definitely.
I think it's an interesting thing as well, because the benefit of almost selling something that doesn't exist is that you can involve the customer in that creation process. And I think what's really helpful about that is it means that they can really guide you that you're on the right route, which is fantastic. Obviously, that's the pro on it. Obviously, the con on it is as soon as you're in that relationship or in that situation, there's a real pressure to deliver, isn't there?
Yes. And like you said, when you do it that way, our first customer had a lot of say in the software. But again, luckily, because I'd been in the industry, we're on a mutual understanding. So I had the background in it. So it wasn't too bad, actually. They weren't too demanding. And a lot of their ideas make sense because obviously they're from the industry. And yeah, we were able to create a really good product working alongside them.
That's brilliant. And obviously at that point in time, I'm guessing that gave you a bit of a springboard into other organizations. Once you had that one customer engaged, you were able to leverage that. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty much just word of mouth at first because this company knew other companies. It's the kind of industry where everybody knows everybody. So word of mouth's a very powerful tool. So it kind of went from there. Someone said, we use this now. And when I have meetings and get together, someone will complain that their software didn't do this or didn't do that. And someone will say, well, we use this, and we get a phone call, and yeah, to take it from there. So it grew quite naturally and organically from that.
That's amazing. And obviously that was like one product at that point. Is that right? Because
yes.
Obviously I know now you offer like quite a portfolio of different solutions there. It's really, it must be really tempting because it's always that thing about, we could do that, we could solve that problem. It must be really tempting. I know that developers always have millions of ideas going on and they see loads of opportunities, but what's your process for deciding like, this is a great idea, but actually it's a great idea that maybe is not something that we need to go ahead with right now, versus this is a great idea and we should really develop and launch a solution around that. How do you make that decision?
It's usually based on need. So we're not really expanding outside of the market that we're in because we've still got quite a lot to do here. And we do have ideas for other products, and we've got other products coming online this year. But we do it based on need because we don't see any point in building software that nobody wants. So we spot the gap in the market and we see what people do need, and we sort of take it from there. I'd love to just run away and be able to just create all of these ideas I've got in my head, but it wouldn't make financial sense, and it would just be a vanity project at the end of the day. So
I get
need. Yeah, market gaps and need there. We have an idea, we look at it, we decide if it's something that is needed and would be wanted before we sort of invest time in it.
And I think that, when you're in a specialist industry like that and you've got these fairly specialist solutions in place, that takes, there's some very specific challenges there for selling that product. I mean, what do you see as like the key challenges for salespeople selling into this space and selling these kinds of solutions?
So I think the key that we've always sort of found with trying to sell software to people in this market, in this industry, is that you have to really understand them. And I think that's where other companies that have tried have failed, because they don't understand the industry, they don't understand the market, and they don't understand the processes of the companies and how they work. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of these companies it's so strange the way that they operate. It's not like normal business in the common sense. So what you need to do is you really need to understand your customer and their needs and how they're going to use the product. And by doing that, we can build the product around it anyway to fit. And once you show the customer that using it actually fits exactly what they're doing and comes with a benefit, that sales generally follow on from there.
Yeah, and that actually brings us back a little bit to, sort of showing the customer. I think that's really interesting because quite often in software, and this is how we got started talking of it, there's different ways that people approach that showing, if that makes sense. They might do trials, or they might do, a free trial. They might do a demo. They might have a freemium option, come in the bottom, and then we'll limit the functionality so you have to upgrade. What are your thoughts around that? I mean, obviously you've like sort of done this with a whole range of different solutions. So what are your thoughts about, which ways worked for you, or, what's the best way to actually grow your users there?
So we've always found that sort of offering a demonstration is what kind of gets people at first. They just want to see it. And we don't actually offer any freemium versions of our software. Sorry, I'm lying. We do. We have one product we do have a freemium version of. But generally, for us, it's always based on a demo and that kind of thing. And people sort of get to use it. But I looked at different options with all of our products, including freemium and things like that. I've got some pretty strong views on how that works. And I think you have to look at it from your own business point of view, what your product is, who your core customers are, and how that would even work for your business. I think freemium has a lot of problems with it, and as do trials. So if you offer someone a trial for 7 days, say, or 14 days, I think a lot of the problem with that is people aren't going to invest the time to set up that software and use it and put all the data in. And if you're trying to use software that's half complete and you've only got half your data in, you're going to quickly find that it doesn't operate as you've designed it to do. So it's going to put the customer off buying it anyway. So a lot of people won't invest the time to take on a trial because they think, well, in 7 days' time or 14 days' time, I'm going to lose all this effort that I've put in. So I think it depends on your product. And like I say, your customers and your own business model, you really have to pick the option that you think is going to work best for you. And for us, staying away from freemium was that kind of thing. Like I was saying before, we do demos. So we'll do an online demonstration, like a video demo. We'll walk customers through and give them it. And then what we'll do is we'll actually give them access to our demo system for a period of time. Sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's more. And that gives them enough time to play with it. And again, this comes back to the industry where we understand it fully. So our demo system contains all the kind of data that the customer might need to play with. And that way they get a really good feel for the product without wasting the time and energy investing into it to then think, well, we're not going to bother with that. So yeah, like I say, you need to really take the option that fits all the boxes. And that can sometimes be a really hard decision to make.
I think there's some really interesting stuff you said there as well. So I absolutely agree with you about the trial thing. I think that the challenge with trials is that, as you say, it takes people so long to set up. They're worried it's going to, they're going to lose stuff at the end of it. But I think the other thing is, it's like the blind leading the blind. They don't know how to use the software. So it can actually be like, oh, before I can really understand if this is going to be right for me, well, I have to learn how to use the whole thing. And I haven't got time for that. So whatever. Or the other thing is that quite often I come across, in some of the conversations I'm having with salespeople following up on people who've had trials. And the thing with that is that it's great, but then quite often people say, oh, I haven't had a chance to do it. And the salesperson's default response is, oh, well, I'll just extend it for you. Well, it just it's this whole thing is like, it just becomes another thing on the prospect's to-do list. And like everyone's busy these days, aren't they? So I totally agree. The idea of giving them like a demo system that's already set up, ready to go, like that's amazing because it means they can see some of the benefit without having to go through that like big learning curve and big piece of work, Yeah.
Like I said, we would never. Yeah, we would never give a customer just a demo, a blank demo, and say, there you go and play with it. They say we always do the introduction first, the online video demo, and talk them through the software so that they've got a starting point. And then when they have the demo, it's full of data to play with.
Yeah, completely. But interestingly, you did say, because I heard it, we do have one bit of software we do on freemium. We do. That's really interesting because I know you're not a fan. So maybe start with why are you not a fan of freemium? Tell me about that. And then you can tell us about why you broke your own rule because I'm excited about that.
So I'm not a fan of freemium because I think a lot of it's been driven by the big tech companies. Personally, I don't actually think there's such a thing as freemium anyway. There's no such thing as a free product. It costs someone. It'll either cost the developer or it'll cost the customer, and it could be a cost that you don't see. So I think big tech has blindly told people they're getting software for free when really the big tech companies are just selling your data. So really you're paying the cost of that free software. And again, it's not free because they're harvesting your data, your privacy, everything else to generate money themselves. So like I said, there's no such thing as freemium. So I think it's a bit of a horrible term to use in software. Someone somewhere is going to pay for it. And then the other thing that I follow a lot of companies, especially big companies, that have started off on the freemium model and they've been freemium for months or years, and then all of a sudden they've thought we need to get some revenue now. We need to monetize this, and they've suddenly looked at the numbers and said 80% of our users are free, so we've got 20% of the users supporting them. We need to make a change to the software now, and what you get at that level. And then you lose trust of customers because they then say, well, you've changed it. I've now either lost access or I'm limited to this. And I think it drives a lot of them away from the product. I can think of one in particular that was an online email service. Started off as freemium. I used it myself. It was fantastic. But they give so much away that there was no point in paying for the service because it did everything you needed it to do. And then eventually their investors said, well, we want some returns now. So they scrapped the freemium version altogether and stuck a massive yearly charge on. And 6 months later, they went bust because nobody would pay. So I think freemium's it's a weird thing to get into, and unless you've got a really good business model around it to back it up, I think you need to think carefully about it.
I think,
so like I said.
Oh no, I was just going to disagree with you as well. I think what you're saying there about lack of trust as well. I think it is a consumer. It can sometimes leave a really bad taste, can't it? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I follow some big companies and things, and I'm quite involved on some groups on things like Reddit and Twitter and everything else I follow. And when software companies make a change, the backlash is often it's felt in them sort of groups and forums. You know, people really take disdain to like these changes, because suddenly it's like, well, we had this for free, and now you're either going to limit or take it away or do something else. So I think, you know, from your own company's point of view, you kind of don't want to do that to your users, or at least you shouldn't do that to your users.
I would totally agree. And I think, but equally, it is that challenge as well, isn't it? Because quite often I think that, especially early stage tech, you know, you're trying to build that user bank so you can go out for investment and say, look, I've got 20,000 users, I've got 50,000 users, invest in me. But then equally, it is this whole dichotomy of it. The investors will only be investing because they want to monetize that. So if you haven't got that model that's going to work for you, then you're always going to have a challenge. We've got quite a few other people who've come on and joined us. If you have come on and joined us, do say hello and tell us, do you agree? Do you agree with all this, or have you got some other thoughts about it? I'd love to know. So you did mention there, David, that there's one product you've broken your rule on. So that would be amazing. Tell us just like a little bit about that, about the product that you do on that model.
Okay, so it's a fairly new product, and it's a bit of software that allows a customer to access another web portal, like an API that another supplier sort of offering. So we built this bit of software for them to be able to just use that themselves without having to pay developers to go and do it all for them. So we built this bit of software. And when we looked at it, we thought we could either sell it, we could do a subscription, but it really didn't need it. So what we did with the freemium version, is we give the software away on a very, very limited basis, where it will do exactly what you need it to do, but it's very feature limited. So the idea behind the software is that you can access X amount of months worth of data from this site. So our software is actually limited to 7 days. So if you've got the free version, you can use it for 7 days. It's fully functional. But if you then want to start going back into your history and viewing all your other things, you need the upgraded version. And if you want to do some other bits and pieces, we have limited some other functionality. So if you just want to use it in the here and now, it's totally free. You can use it. If you then want the extra bells, whistles, and the ability to sort of look at historical things, you need the upgraded version. And 90% of people have changed to the paid version.
So you've sort of said, it's all about getting that model right. And you've also just said there that most people go on to your paid version. So this is probably an example where freemium's maybe been the right route on this. Why do you think that's been?
I think because it does what they need it to do. And also the product that we've built, it's not cloud-based, it's an installable product. So for us, there's not a lot of overhead in maintaining that software. So we don't have to, keep data in the cloud for customers and things like that. So our overheads on that are very minimal, other than maybe future development and upkeep. So we could, in theory, give it away for free, but we do want some return on it. So that's why we did it in that way. We give them the call bit and said, if you want it, it's an upgrade. And we actually did the upgrade as a one-off license cost as well. So it's not a recurring model. So the jump from free to getting the pro version is actually quite minimal. So it doesn't put people off. They don't think, I'm going to be tied into this for years. And once they've done that one-off cost, it's there. So I think giving them it for free was enough to say, oh yeah, this works. We can try it. We can see it. It does what we want. We do want the extras, and actually it's not really a lot of money to upgrade. So yeah, it definitely, on this one product, it definitely worked.
Oh, well, I'm pleased there's an exception to your rule, because, it's nice to know there can always be an exception. Couple of comments that have just come in. Yeah, Mark, that just happened with LastPass. Absolutely. That's what started this whole conversation, Mark. I tell you what, And also, we've got another Mark. All the Marks in today, I'll tell you. And Mark Gardner, being an ex-sales manager, part of an ad tech startup and running a UK tech pre-accelerator. I'm all about A/B test, having conversations. Don't assume what the paying customer wants. MVP, what works, what sells. That's minimum viable product. So yeah, I would absolutely saying there that I would disagree with. Have you got any thoughts around that, David? Obviously, you've had the opportunity of having those conversations even pre-sell with your first product.
Yeah, no, I think I hit the nail on the head there. Don't assume what the paying customer wants. I can't speak for the broader industry because, like I say, we are such a niche thing, and because I'm in the industry, I understand it fully. So I've got a good grasp of what the customer did want. And then, obviously, like I say, with our first customer, we had the benefit of having multiple meetings and development meetings, and really understanding all the intricacies of it to give them what they did want. We touched on it earlier. It's excellent for developers to then think, "Well, I'm going to run away with this now. I'm going to do this simply because I can." But it's not beneficial to the bottom line, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing that would be really useful to know as well. So obviously your first product, you almost like pre-sold, which was kind of like your kickoff. Obviously you've got this freemium product, which gives you a way of almost testing like that. What about your other products in between, like the drivers on those? Have you also worked side by side with customers to develop those as you've gone? Or have you been like in a situation where actually you've because you've known the customer base, you've built the product and then taken it to market? Which way around has that gone?
Yeah, for us, it's usually been that we build it for the market because we know it, and we know that what customers do want. So we generally, like I said earlier, we don't just run off and build things because we think best. We do understand it, and where we spot a gap, that's where we build and we develop products to sell because we know that there's a space for them. I could spend hours and hours just developing, but it wouldn't get us anywhere. So we spot the gaps. We sometimes get approached by customers as well for software where they want things done and that kind of thing. And it just kind of goes from there. If there's a gap, we know what we're doing with the industry, so generally it's a pretty good fit. And then we usually get some companies on to sort of beta test products, and that's always a good way of getting feedback and things. And it just kind of goes from there. So by the time the product's ready to sell to everybody, it's usually pretty well developed and it's tailored for those people.
That's really interesting as well, because that's coming back to relationships again, isn't it? And a lot of what you've been talking about here really has been around those relationships that you've built and the connections that you've had in the industry. Obviously, so you were able to go out and have those conversations and bring beta testers on. Obviously, that was partly because of your previous life in this industry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what else do you do sort of like now to continue to build those relationships?
So we're always in touch with, what current customers. And like I said earlier, a lot of our stuff's word of mouth, everybody knows everybody. And then even when someone sort of just out of the blue rings, and sometimes they'll not even be after anything in particular, it'll just be asking if we do a certain thing, and from there that can build on and build on. So we always maintain really good relationships, not even just with customers, but I'm still in contact with a lot of people that I've spoke to in the past who've shown some interest. And so things are sort of heading in the right direction, even if not right now. I'll know that in a few months or a year or so we might pick up on that again with them. It's a slightly strange industry for that. A lot of my customers I'll speak to months and months in advance, where they're just sort of testing the water, and then eventually they'll come back to us. So it is relationships. We speak to people, we keep in touch with them, and we take it from there. We also don't hard sell. I think the products speak for themselves. When people see what they do, because it's so niche and tailored to them, it generally just works from there.
And when you're taking your software out, do you have, because I think one of the other things that's really interesting here, it's, you've got a great product, you've got obviously your route to market, those relationships, and then you start to bring customers in the door. Do you have like a full onboarding process, or is that something that's automated? Is that still a one-to-one conversation? How is that working for you? Because again, this is sometimes I think with software where people go in different directions. They automate a lot of it, or they do a lot of it sort of with real people. They can be very different routes there, quite often with different results. What's your view around that?
I think it depends on what works for the business. For us, we're very one-to-one. again, back to the relations thing, we really try and sort of listen to customers. Every customer of ours, although they're in the same industry, is very different in the way that they operate and the way they do things. So that would always for us be an in-person thing. We don't actually automate any of it, to be honest. We just take it all face to face, or in the last year, not so much face to face.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking before we came on here, obviously the changes, and I know you're really busy at the moment as everyone's ramping back up to for the big reopening. So that's all really good to hear. I think one of the other things is that obviously you're selling tech, but I'm sure you'll also have been sold too. So having bought tech in the past and having had tech sold to you, do you have any standout, like fantastic experiences, and what can we learn from that?
Yeah, actually, to be honest, a lot of the attempted sales that I've had.
Attempted sales.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cutting.
Well,
Are we still here? Are we still live?
Yeah.
David, are you there? Sorry, everything just went black on my screen for a moment there. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I might have missed a moment there. So I was asking you about the attempted sales that you've had there.
Yeah, so yeah, I like to say I call them attempted sales because I don't feel like the salesperson's invested fully in even attempting to sell a product. But recently, I did have a sales call from a company that was selling a tech product. And although I didn't go on to buy it, but that was simply because I didn't see the value for our business from it. The sales approach, I mean, it was a phone call, but the person on the other end of the phone had taken the time to understand the business. He had done some research on it. He researched the market. He knew what he was talking about. He even knew a lot of the people that I know. He was selling to the same companies, and he would sort of talk to the same people, and you hear names come up. So he really got a grasp of who we were, what we did, who we interacted with, and he knew that the people he'd also been selling to, same market as us, that kind of thing. And he wasn't very pushy. He explained his service fantastically, what the product was. He was totally upfront about everything. There was no hard sell, and it was a very liberating experience compared to most calls that I've had in the past, where people just don't even, they don't understand. I get phone calls all the time from people saying, "Oh, do you need any software development for your business?" Well, I mean, it just takes a look on my website to know that we are a software development company. So I don't really need someone coming along giving us that. So just taking the time, it took that, maybe 5 minutes. I could say that he had been on LinkedIn and things like that, but at least he was willing to put that effort in to then come and make a really customized approach. And yeah, it was quite refreshing, actually. So like I say, although I didn't go on to buy the product from him, I applauded him. And I've actually told him to give us a ring back in a year when things might be different.
I think that's fascinating as well, because that is actually a very traditional sales approach, picking up the phone and ringing people, which is great, fantastic. And actually, sometimes in this day and age, it can be better than sending an email, because let's be honest, how many emails did you get yesterday versus how many phone calls did you get? It's like night and day, isn't it? And not just that, one hit of the delete button and that email's gone for forever. Whereas if someone answers the phone, at least you have an opportunity for a couple of minutes of someone's time. So I think that, interestingly, I think there's still a real route for a real opportunity for the phone in selling. But I think it's got such a bad rep, and it's got such a bad rep because of exactly what you're saying. It's almost that calling by rote, isn't it? It's just, nobody's really prepped. No one's taking any time. No one's tailored what they're talking about. They just pick up the phone and they just almost throw stuff at you down the phone. And you just want them to go away, really, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, most of the time, a lot of them don't even know the product they're selling very well. Mm-hmm. So they don't know that it's a fit for you. So yeah, definitely taking that time just to learn about it and be prepared. Yeah, a lot of phone calls I'll dismiss quite quickly, but I told him to ring us back because I was actually quite impressed.
Yeah, it is strange. And I think the other thing is, in this day and age, there's like literally no excuse. I mean, it takes 3.5 seconds to find all this stuff out, doesn't it, on the internet? It's not hard at all. So what do you see? So, one of the other things is, like, we're always thinking about the future. Obviously, it's been a strange 12 months already, but now we're moving into like bright new world kind of thing. So what do you see is like the next big thing in tech? What do you see as the next big tech innovation that's coming up?
It's so hard to say, because we've seen in the past a lot of things that everyone thought was the next big thing. So like VR. VR at one time was hailed as the absolute thing, and everyone was going to be doing it. And to be honest, it's quite niche still now, and yeah, it's not really used as much as they thought. We've got all the normal stuff that everyone says, like, self-driving cars, that's all coming along. I mean, that is coming along, and it's getting better. But I've been quite impressed recently with the Neuralink thing that Elon Musk's doing, with being able to interface someone's brain with tech. And I think especially in the fields of healthcare and social care, I think that's a big one. So once we get past that and it becomes more mainstream, being able to sort of interface human thought with technology, I think is going to be a big one in the future.
I think it's one of those things as well. I think there's been so much sci-fi about it, hasn't there?
Yeah.
Well, I was reading something the other day, and it was a guy who's had as many interfaces as possible because of I can't remember what it was, but to try and prolong his interaction as long as possible. And it was one of those things that you sort of think, oh, that must be amazing. But then on the other side of the scale, I think William Shatner, Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
He's done like an AI version of himself. So it's like in 20 years, like he's still going to be there on the bridge of the Enterprise. And I was really excited on the one hand, but on the other hand, I was a bit like, it's going down that route of actually our brains could be alive past us being alive. And how does that work? And is that a bit freaky? And I don't know, really. I'm a bit on the fence.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange one. It's a lot of it's still a lot of sci-fi. There's some good films about it, and it does make you kind of think, wow, that'd be scary if it was possible. I'm not sure I'd want myself to live forever on the internet. I don't think that's a good thing, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you've got a fan club, David. I'm sure there's people out there going, that would be amazing. Forget William Shatner. We want David Middleton. But yeah, I think that whole Neuralink thing, I think you're right. I think that's going to be fascinating. And I think the reach that, we've got with computing in this day and age, I mean, it's like, what could you do? You could do anything. I mean, you could think you're doing anything, think about integrating all those things as well, the VR and the neural stuff and the AI stuff. Like, where are we going to end up? Sitting in the back of a self-driving car running the world, probably,
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so I always ask at the end of every one of our step up sessions about what 3 things you could recommend to us as someone who is not only selling tech, but also buying tech. You're on both sides of it. So what would be your 3 things that you could recommend that salespeople today could actually do to increase their success in selling technology and software?
Okay, I'm pretty much going to reinforce points that I've already made. So the 3 things I would say was understand your product. A lot of people come into sales where they're not from the business. They'll come in just to sell a product. So you really need to understand the product and get a good grasp of it, what it does. Understand your customer. I say a little bit of research. Understand the market and the need, and then understand the link between the two. That's the 3 core things that I think is understand your product, understand your customer and your market, and then understand how that works together. So that when you're talking to customers, they know that you understand what you're trying to sell them is a benefit to them.
And I think that's amazing, because I think the key thing you've said at the end about all of that is what's the benefit to them. And I think especially when you're selling software and tech, it's such a challenge, not just to show people how to press buttons and here's the next shiny feature. It's about that big benefit that's actually tying it all together, isn't it?
Yeah, especially if it's business. If you're doing business to business, businesses don't want to spend money unless it's going to benefit their company. So they really need to see that what they're buying is a benefit and a plus point for them. Otherwise, what's the point in spending money on it?
Yeah, I completely and utterly get that. Mark's just come in with another question. Here we go, Mark. I'm going to put you on screen. Fame at last. Mark Gardner, are you to create the need, or are you a create the need or meet the need person? Oh, that's a deep meaning. Well, come on then, David. What are you?
I think I'm a little bit of both. I think primarily meet the need, because it's a safer bet in terms of business wise. If we're meeting the needs of someone, we can probably make some money from it. But at the same time, it's nice when you suddenly discover something that you think could help, and then you can go after it. So I wouldn't peg myself into either or. I just take it as it comes. And yeah, if I'd love to be able to create needs all the time, but we can't. So yeah, meet the need first, and hopefully create some additional benefits as well.
That's great. And I think Mark's not appreciating you being on the fence. I think he's... Oh, goodness. Thank you for joining us, Mark. It's lovely to have some interaction there. David, it's been fantastic talking to you today, and I actually just understand a little bit more and actually hearing a bit more about your business as well. But I have to be honest, I'm particularly enjoying the fact that we have a freemium opinion and then we have the one exception to the rule. That's definitely been one of my big highlights. But I think what that illustrates is a lot of what your approach has been all the way along, which is it's getting the right approach for the right market at the right time. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, a bit like I just did there. I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit. So I would never rule anything out. And as I mentioned earlier, you've just got to pick the option that works best for the product, the customer, and your own business model. Yeah, don't try and do something just because it's the end thing or because you've seen big companies do it. The big tech companies have got money to spare, investors beyond belief. It doesn't mean it'll work for every business. So definitely, choose the option that you think and give it some real core thoughts on how you're going to get those freemium users to be paid users. Because at the end of the day, if you've got 80% free users, and 20% of people are supporting that cost, is that really a good business model? Probably not. So, give it some thought. Freemium might not be the way. A trial might not be the way. And even a demo might not be the way. You really have to be specific to your own product, your own needs, and your own business.
Oh, that's great. David, it's been fantastic having you on today. And just to pop your details up, because obviously I know people want to catch up with you following this. So obviously people can connect with you, and we've tagged David in the comments so they can connect with you on LinkedIn. I also know you're on Twitter, so we've popped your Twitter handle on there. And of course you can check out VMA as well. Their web addresses are there, and we'll also pop those details in the comments. So thanks so much for joining us today, David. It's been amazing.
It's been good fun.
It has. And actually, the dog didn't join us. She's not here, but we're feeling the love anyway. Okay, that's been great. We'll speak to you very soon. So thanks so much for joining us here on the Sales Step Up on LinkedIn. Mark has just said, wish I'd watched you from the start, enjoyed the conversation between you both. I'm so pleased, Mark. You will find once this is wrapped up, you can actually get it back from the beginning and catch the early thoughts there. So do whip back and tell us what you, and see if you want to catch the beginning of that. Also connect with me, and that way you'll get reminded next time that I go live with the Sales Step Up. Remember to connect with David as well, because he is a man who's doing all sorts. So, keep in touch. He's got multiple products out there, and he is using different business models, which I think is really interesting. So I'm sure that if you want any further chat with him, he'd be happy to have that conversation. In the meantime, that's all from me for now. It's been great to have you here. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. And if you've watched us on replay, give us a like. If you've watched us live, thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.